afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 43865 and 43847 Ferguson Line, the municipality of Central Elgin. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Ms. Leach, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public, please?
Mr. Mayor, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on September 16th, 2025. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff, and notice was also posted to the municipal website.
We have Jesse McPhail, a planner, who's going to present and explain the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. McPhail, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I am here replacing my colleague Paul Hicks, who sends his regrets. So I've got just a brief couple slides just to help council and the public and members in the gallery understand what the proposal is tonight. So the applicants are seeking to rezone the subject lands, and I'm just going to share my screen and pull that up. Just give me one moment here. Okay, so the subject property is generally outlined in the white outline here. So the applicant had received provisional approval for a surplus farm dwelling severance earlier in the year from the county of Elgin. And this application is essentially a condition of approval for that provisional severance. The applicants had, this next slide here is just showing they had sought to sever a surplus farm dwelling off of the balance of the agricultural lands. And as council and likely folks in the gallery are familiar with provincial policies and county and local official plan policies requiring the balance of any agricultural lands in a scenario to be rezoned to prohibit any further residential development or uses. With this one, it's a little bit different because as part of that surplus dwelling severance, the applicant had also submitted a concurrent severance application and that's described on the right here. That was essentially to sliver off a little bit of land from an existing smaller residential lot to be then deeded over to the new lot at 43847. So what this zoning amendment essentially is seeking is kind of two parts. So the first part is to rezone that new lot, or sort of rather the balance of the lands rather, to a site-specific open space zone to prohibit any future residential uses on the lands in accordance with the PPS and official plan. And then the second component of the rezoning is to rezone that little sliver of land being taken from 43865 and added to 43847. That little strip of land, it's because each of the lots would have, in essence, a different code assigned to that site-specific zone. So it's more of a technicality to just make sure that that little strip is aligned in terms of the zoning designation with that new lot. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions if there are any from council or members of the public.
Thank you, Mr. McPhail. Ms. Leach, have you received any written submissions on the proposal?
Mr. Mayor, correspondence was received from Southwestern Public Health with no objection to the content of the application as it currently stands, and from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority confirming that portions of 43847 Ferguson Line are affected by natural hazard regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act, as they are within or adjacent to a river or stream valley. However, they further understand that the purpose of the amendment is intended to implement the conditions placed on the severance application, which occurred in non-regulated areas.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the gallery or anyone online, Ms. Redmond, that wishes to speak to this?
Mayor Sloan, there's no one online.
It doesn't look like there's anyone in the gallery. Any member of council, or do any of the members of council have any questions? Thank you. Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed amendment should email Delaney Leach, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on, and should also, if they wish, could call Delaney Leach at 519-631-4860, extension 286. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council. This public meeting is adjourned at 6:34. This is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting part of Lot 16, Concession 15, Belmont, Municipality of Central Elgin. Does any member of council have a disclosure or interest concerning this proposal? Ms. Leach, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for the meeting, please?
Mr. Mayor, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on September 16, 2025. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff, and notice was also posted to the municipal website.
Thank you. Our planner, Mr. McPhail, you're going to present to us and explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to share my screen. Again, just a very brief slide deck to help the presentation along here. So this is the subject lands here identified with the white outline. This application is seeking to amend the Village of Belmont zoning bylaw to establish a new telecommunications construction business. So this would be considered a contractor's yard if it were to be defined in the zoning bylaw. So essentially what this proposal is seeking is to rezone the subject lands to remove there are two holding provisions on the lands, essentially speaking to the site servicing as well as reserve capacity and site plan obligations, and then to facilitate the proposed use. So currently in the zoning bylaw, contractor's yard is not contemplated, particularly in general or on these lands. These lands are currently zoned industrial commercial. They're a site-specific holding zone, as I had mentioned. It's within a designated employment area in the village. So the site essentially, the applicants are seeking again to establish that telecommunications construction business. So the facility essentially would be described in the preliminary site plan that was provided. So it would consist of a sort of a base for administrative, mechanical, and operational staff for the region. And this would be, storage for trucks, trailers, and construction equipment, in addition to the proposed building, which you can see here. So in terms of the proposed amendment itself, it appears to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the county and municipality's official plan in terms of supporting employment, land development, and economic development priorities. As part of the application, any of the potential issues that may have been associated with the proposal have been investigated and supported through the studies submitted by the applicant. So I'll just note that the application was complemented with a planning justification report, a traffic impact study, a servicing brief, a preliminary site plan, as well as two land use compatibility assessments under the D series guidelines administered by the ministry. So this was for air quality and noise impacts. So staff will be providing a little more of a fulsome overview and review of that in the formation of a recommendation in the future. But in terms of the proposal itself, it's aligned with the official plan and generally in line with what the current zoning would permit there. It's more of in terms of a technicality, in terms of a definition creation for this zone. The two holdings being removed or proposed for removal, the conditions for the removal of those holdings would essentially be fulfilled through the site plan application process. So the first holding, again, would be requiring a stormwater management plan and site plan approval. And the second holding provision would be limiting the size of buildings on the site to 1,750 square meters until there's enough reserve sewage capacity. So the supporting information submitted by the applicants would address both of those items in support of the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McPhail. Ms. Leach, have you received any written submissions on the proposal, please?
Mr. Mayor, correspondence was received from Southwestern Public Health confirming no objection to the content of the application as it currently stands. From the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority confirming that staff had reviewed the notice and that based on mandatory programs and services, they have no objection to its approval. They also confirm that the subject lands are not affected by natural hazard regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act. Correspondence was also received from Ms. Carly Gavey with concerns related to the anticipated increase in traffic and associated safety risks for residents, particularly children, in the neighboring residential area.
Thank you. Ms. Redmond, do we have anyone online that wishes to speak?
Mayor Sloan, there are no attendees online.
Thank you. Do I have anyone in the gallery that wishes to speak to this proposed bylaw amendment? If you'd like to come forward, and again, red button, sorry, press the button and just identify yourselves and welcome.
Hi, my name is Jackie Campbell. My husband, Charles Forbes. We live at 45250 Taylor Line. So a good portion of our property aligns with a good portion of this property. But I felt with the proposal, the separation was overestimated. I think it's much closer. We are much closer to the property than what it said in the proposal. So we did have some concerns with water drainage and noise affecting us.
It used to be a pond there for the cheese factory years ago. They fill up a pond a couple of years ago, and now we're getting water all the time. There's no ditch and Taylor line for it to go.
So that's our concern.
So, you know, you raise it up to build something, where's that water gonna go? You know, and we got cattles and everything, we're trying to, you know, raise,
Evelyn Farm.
yeah.
Understood.
And across the road from that is all home. Like
Like Dyer Street and.
it's all home, right? So I don't see putting big trucks in there, but all the homeowners.
Let me just ask, Mr. Nemens, do you want to comment on these concerns? Would you be comfortable doing that, sir? Sorry, what did I say? Mr. McPhail, I apologize. Mr. McPhail.
Apologies. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was a Mr.
Sorry.
Nemeth in it.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. In terms of the concerns, I think we're hopeful that and confident that in terms of addressing those concerns, particularly with stormwater management, that was one of the reasons why one of the holdings was placed on the property itself. So essentially what a holding does is it puts a hold on development until council is satisfied that the concerns or conditions that are tied to that holding have been appropriately satisfied. So in this case, I will say that in support of the application, they have prepared a servicing brief that would address those concerns as part of the site plan control process. So it'd be a subsequent application. They would be required to prepare a stormwater management report where you would have an engineer designing grades on the site and ensuring that runoff isn't impacting. At a basic level, you're ensuring the pre-development flows and post-development flows before and after development are more or less maintained so that you're not impacting adjacent properties. So that's something that we'll be looking at as staff and making sure that that's addressed.
Did you wish to comment? Please do.
Yes, so I guess I'm not sure when they decided our distance to the property, how that was determined, because, you know, we're close at the backside of the property. And like my husband said, it's a wetland really back there. But, you know, so is the storm sewer going to be considered at the front of the property, or are they going to be looking at what's happening at the backside of that property where the farmland is?
So in answer to that, actually, I'll just pull up their preliminary site plan, which I hopefully will paint a little bit of a clearer picture here. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So this is the current property here. So as you can see, the actual area of development is relatively speaking, it's the portion that's kind of located closer to the road. I'm not sure intimately what the plan is for stormwater management. It's my understanding that that's going to be something that's addressed at the site plan stage. I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in the applicant's mouth or commit them to anything at this point if those details haven't been determined, but I would imagine that they would likely try to use the existing grades and the existing ponds on site to help with that stormwater management. But at this time, I don't believe we have that information or that level of detail right now.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. McPhail. We have the applicant, I believe, who can speak to this. Is that correct, sir? Do you want to come forward? Sorry, just come up and, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Sorry to cut you off there, Mr. McPhail, but I got a flag from the audience that the applicant is here.
Sure, I'm not the owner. My name's John Spreet. I'm the engineer for the applicant. So the intent for the stormwater management would be to drain it. When we were going through the process, discussing with Central Elgin, they indicated there's a storm sewer along the south side of Borden Ave that runs to the west. So the intention would be for this site to drain into that storm sewer down to the creek. So it wouldn't really have any effect or anything on the pond. Everything would come forward, is what we've been
So
told.
it goes to Borden?
Borden, what we understand, yes.
So it's
Right
going
now, the water
north?
goes
So it's going north?
South.
It's going west. West. There is a municipal storm sewer that runs along, on the south side of Borden Ave, that runs west.
Like along Borden's path?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that was, when we had discussions, that was the intention. You know, municipality indicated that would be the correct spot to join the storm sewer water to. So do that. Now, we still have to do stormwater management and everything else, but any storm sewers we construct here would go out here, and we understand there's something that runs all the way down here.
Right now, the water,
Drains here.
everything
Yeah,
runs right
yeah.
through here.
Yeah, so all this area here would be regraded and brought that way.
But you're gonna regrade this part?
Well, we're only gonna regrade what we touch. It's a big site. They're not utilizing the entire site. They're only utilizing this portion of it. So they would take that to the front. The rest of it will just remain as is.
If I might, maybe we could just have, because this report comes back to council. So in the interim, we're not deciding anything today other than going to the next step. So perhaps I could ask that maybe you and Mr. Spreet have a chat, and as we see the report to council, you'll have another chance to have it. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'll give you,
Thank-
yep,
Well,
thank you.
thanks to you all. Any questions from council? Everyone has been given a fair opportunity. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of bylaw and the proposed amendment should email Delaney Leach or call Delaney Leach at 631-4860. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council in November. This public meeting is adjourned at 6:53. Thank you. to the council, corporations, municipal, no, it has to be put back in. Corporation, Municipality of Central Elgin. For those that are in the gallery, please rise for the national anthem. Thank you. The municipality of Central Elgin acknowledges that it is located on the land of the McKee Treaty that was signed by the Wyandot and Anishinaabe nations, including ancestors of Chippewas of the Thames First Nation. It is also the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Attawandarak, and Mississauga Nation. These First Nations continue to provide ongoing stewardship to the land and waters in the municipality of Central Elgin. First on the agenda, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome Scott Mayers, our new Director of Public Works and Community Services. In this role, Scott will provide strategic and operational leadership for all municipal public works and community services, including the teams that care for our roads, bridges, water and wastewater, waste management, community facilities, parks, beaches, trails, and fleet. Scott brings over 30 years of experience in community services and recently served as Director of Community Services with the municipality of Middlesex Centre. On behalf of the council, welcome to the team, Scott. If I could get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the minutes for the special meeting of council dated Monday, September 22nd, 2025 be adopted.
Any questions, any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. On to delegations. Our first delegation is Amy Dale. Amy's a partner at Harrison Pensa. She's here on behalf of Mr. Aaron Everatt and the North Shore Farming Co. regarding the Pleasant Valley Bridge. Welcome, Ms. Dale.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and staff. I want to begin with two preliminary comments. First, I want to couch everything that I have to say tonight with the fact that my client has not come or had me come to speak on his behalf in an adversarial manner, but simply that he wants me to bring some options to you as to how we may be able to address the Pleasant Valley Bridge situation. He also has asked me to say that he does appreciate the attempts of staff and council to date to address this situation, and has specifically wanted us to have some constructive discourse as much as that's possible during a delegation. Second, I want to offer you my apologies. I was not able to get you a package in advance of tonight to provide you the documentation that I am going to refer to during my delegation. I have given an electronic copy of that to Delaney, and I do have, if you're old school, hard copies that I brought here tonight if you do want to have those for reference, whatever is your preference. By way of background, and just to give you some context as to why the Pleasant Valley Bridge is significant to my client, North Shore purchased the property that it owns on Pleasant Valley Line in 2012 for use as part of its aggregate business. And the existence of the non-weight restricted bridge on the access route to that pit was a factor in their decision to purchase the property. Over the last several years, they have worked to get the existing pit license modified for their own use. as that pit contains aggregate products that are essential to their overall operations. They were on the cusp of having the pit opened when the bridge was closed, and unfortunately, they are losing money while the bridge remains closed and will continue to do so if council adopts the recommended option that was in the staff report that was brought to you on September 8th and is in your council package again tonight. With the bridge closed or weight restricted for use by only non-commercial vehicles, my client's option to access the pit is via a hill with a grade that is unsafe for use with fully loaded gravel trucks. If you look in your staff report that you have in your package, you will see that there's mention in there that the east slope, or the slope to the east of where the bridge is, requires a slope reduction to even be safe for vehicular traffic. So obviously not safe for the use of fully loaded gravel trucks. My client, as you probably remember, was in attendance at the September 8th meeting of council, and he did hear the delegation of Safe Roads Engineering and the related report to council. He had some concerns arising from those presentations, and first and foremost was that the presentation and the report indicated that the bridge was designed to carry a 20-ton highway traffic, where upon investigation, he believes that the bridge is actually a CL625 bridge that had an original capacity capable of carrying a gross vehicle weight of 60 metric tons. So a fairly significant difference when you're looking at that as a starting principle. Also, and I'll admit it may be of less significance to the decision-making process that you guys have to undertake, the bridge is incorrectly referred to as a Bailey Bridge when it is in fact a maybe bridge. And you'll see in the package that I produced for you, there's some photographs that we have of the stamping on the bridge directly that indicate that it is a maybe bridge. So in light of his concerns, my client undertook some investigations of his own. He had Spreet and Associates attend to inspect the bridge and provide a report as to its structural condition and to assess potential remedial measures to allow the bridge to reopen. He obtained from Algonquin Bridge a quote for the cost of replacing all of the damaged steel components of the bridge. And while working to determine the cost of the labor to complete the work attendant to install the bridge and the engineering that would be necessary for any repairs on that bridge, he learned that the cost of an entirely new bridge with unrestricted weight limits and a 75-year lifespan, including new foundations, if they're actually required, would appear to cost significantly less than what was estimated by Safe Roads. Albeit late breaking, I've provided in the package for your consideration a copy of the Andy Spreet report from his review of the bridge from September 10th, the Algonquin Bridge quotes from October 31st, 2024, and then the updated quote they provided to my client from September 29th, 2025 to repair the bridge. I've also included Algonquin's October 2nd, 2025 quote to replace the bridge, as well as an Acro Bridge quote dated October 4th, 2025 to replace the bridge. Now I'm going to note very frankly for you that all of those quotes do not include the foundation design and construction if a new foundation is required, or the actual installation of the bridge. My client has reached out to FACA Construction for that estimate, but unfortunately, with time constraints, we were not able to get a written estimate for you with respect to installation before this evening's delegation. Obviously, my client appreciates that the municipality has procurement rules that it has to follow, and we're not suggesting in any way that those be circumvented. But we've brought this delegation and the related documentation to you tonight so that you have something concrete for consideration in terms of costing options in addition to those that were set out in the Safe Engineering report and then upon which your staff report was based. If I compare the quotes that my client has obtained, and if you do the same against the cost estimates provided by Safe Roads Engineering, it is clear that the SRE quotes are significantly higher than those that my client has acquired directly from the bridge companies. And just so you know too, the Acro company that we got the bridge replacement quote from, they are the company that has the Canadian rights to maybe bridges, which is what this type of bridge is. And then Algonquin obviously is a company that has their own bridge designs that they do and have obviously worked on these bridges in the past. So in the absence of the installation quotes to accompany the actual infrastructure quotes, we're asking tonight in this delegation that you defer your decision. I realize you already have, but we're asking you to defer it again so that you can confirm the true costs associated with either repairing the bridge to return it to at or near its original weight capacity, or installing an entirely new bridge at what appears to be a cost far lower than set out in the Safe Roads report. And I will say, for the purposes of tonight, my client has indicated to me that he has heard from FACA. They did tell him completely off the cuff, so please bear in mind that that's what this is, but that they believe that the cost would be somewhere in the range of $1.5 million for the new bridge installation, subject to the need for the foundation full assessment. So I do want to make sure that the caveat is out on what I'm saying, but I'm giving you that information in a verbal way so that you can understand why we believe that there may be some reason to reconsider the Safe Roads estimates. So if it's possible to get the ratepayers a much better outcome at the same cost, or something significantly better at a slightly higher cost, we think it's best for everyone to take a step back and explore this while still striving to move ahead in a timely manner. So thank you for your time and consideration tonight. I'm open to any questions if anybody does have any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dale. As always, your presentations are full of information, and we're learning a lot about bridges. So I appreciate.
As did I.
So we are going to be looking at this a little bit later in the agenda, but in the interim, do any of the councillors have any questions for Ms. Dale? Councillor Graham, please.
Through the chair, Ms. Dale. So when the bridge, if the option number 3 is completed and the bridge is rebuilt as staff recommends, does that hinder North Shore's ability to bring full truckloads across that bridge?
Based upon the weight limit restriction that was noted in that option 3 in the staff report, yes, that would be a weight limit far lower than what they would need in order to travel across it with gravel trucks.
Supplementary, Councillor Graham? Oh, here we go.
Right. And prior to the bridge being found to be in disrepair, were they able to bring full truckloads across then?
Yes, they were able to travel across it with fully loaded trucks at that point, although I know we've all seen the pictures of the substructure. But yes, they were able to do that. And again, like I noted in my comments, the ability to use that bridge was part of the decision-making in their decision to acquire this pit.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, I appreciate all the work that's been done by Aaron and yourself to bring this stuff to us and give us this new information. If I could get a copy of that package, that'd be great. Because we...
Yes, and again, with my apologies, Deputy Mayor, your clerk does have hard paper copies that I gave her when I arrived this evening, so she can provide that to you. Okay.
Understood. Further questions? Yeah, I think we're going to get them probably handed out when we look at it. Ms. Leach, I'll defer to you. What's the, Councillor Graham wants to know about the packages, please.
Certainly, if council would like to review the hard copies, I can distribute them.
Thank you. Councillor Connors, please.
Through you, Chair. You probably presented it, but I missed it. You delivered an awful lot of information there. What is the minimum capacity that the client needs, or your client needs?
Councillor, I will probably defer to him on that. I will say that his entire approach to this has been that he was looking to have that original CL 625, which is a 60 metric ton, which is the standard Queens Highway rating for a bridge. And I think if you do look at the Safe Roads Engineering estimates on the second page of their costing estimates, there were several options that did relate to a CL 625 bridge.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, Ms. Dale, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Council.
Our second delegation this evening is from Suzanne Craig, the Integrity Commissioner, regarding the 2025 Integrity Commissioner Annual Report. Ms. Craig, are you available, or can you hear me?
Mr. Mayor, I can.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Sloan, Deputy Mayor Noble, members of council, staff, and members of the public who may be listening. My apologies for not being there in person. I had a personal commitment that I had to attend to, and I could not be there in person. I'm submitting to you this evening the Central Elgin Integrity Commissioner Annual Report, Interim Report Period, that sets out the activities of my office for the past 6 months since my appointment as your Integrity Commissioner for the municipality. Ordinarily, I would table a report after 12 calendar months or beyond. However, both the Municipal Act and the Code of Conduct provide that I may provide periodic reports as deemed necessary, and I have chosen to do so this evening because I believe it's necessary. During this reporting period, this office is focused on navigating a number of significant formal complaints. I've received 13 formal complaints from March 17th, 2025 to September 26th, 2025. These complaints, in my view, have underscored an absence of members of council working together. It appears that there is enmity between certain members of council, and this has become increasingly pronounced over the course of the last 6 months. In the interim report before you, I've set out the role of the Integrity Commissioner, which was first set out by Justice Bellamy, who stated, following her judicial inquiry into the MFP procurement at the City of Toronto, MFP being the financial services company, the role and the attributes of an Integrity Commissioner. She lists them, I'll just list some: objectivity and thoughtfulness, political astuteness, personal and professional maturity, working knowledge of applicable laws and regulations, and the ability and willingness to take a difficult or unpopular position if necessary. Justice Bellamy and Justice Cunningham, the Commissioner of the Mississauga Inquiry, recommended that an Integrity Commissioner should be an ethics professional with the skills and the attributes to conduct a fair and objective investigation in accordance with the bylaws of the municipality. The Integrity Commissioner investigates complaints about members of council and their conduct under the code. If the alleged conduct relates to another process, such as access to information or human resources or the criminal code, the Integrity Commissioner will invite the complainant to pursue the matter through another process. Where there is a finding of a violation of the code, the Commissioner reports on her findings and makes recommendations to council on possible penalties and corrective sanctions. In circumstances in which the complaint raises some very important questions around governance and transparency and systemic issues or policy gaps that intersect with the code rules, the Integrity Commissioner will report these in a periodic report to council. The Integrity Commissioner is not responsible for the receipt, review, or investigation of the actions, decisions, or omissions of staff or decisions of council. In the report before you, I've recommended that, given reasons why I believe council and the municipality needs a clearer understanding of the steps that the Integrity Commissioner takes when in receipt of a Code of Conduct complaint, I'm recommending the updating of your complaint protocol to set out these steps for the Integrity Commissioner, so the members of council, the public, and staff are aware of what process I should be following. I've also recommended the updating of the council staff relations policy and a council member use of social media policy. I've set out the breakdown of the stats regarding the complaints in the report before you. As I said, there were 13 complaints thus far. One was informally resolved and dismissed. One was dismissed pending a determination and addendum. One was dismissed with no public report, as I found that there were no significant public interests that I felt would override the rule to dismiss reports and not publicly report. One was abandoned and dismissed. One was fully investigated, and some of the allegations were sustained, and the report is before you today, and 8 are ongoing. When I was appointed to the role of Integrity Commissioner by council, I understood that council sought an experienced ethics officer with knowledge of accountability regimes and procedural fairness. I've been an Integrity Commissioner, a lobbyist registrar, a closed meeting investigator for over 30 municipal organizations in Ontario. I'm committed to serving this municipality with enthusiasm, thoughtfulness, and professionalism, and I advise council that my default in carrying out my appointed statutory duty is not to facilitate the use of the code as a weapon for personal and political attacks. My preference is to facilitate an understanding of governance rules that encourage civility and that at the end of the day allow you, members of council who are duly elected, to do what you were elected to do: represent the electorate of the municipality with respect for one another, staff, and the public. I've expressed concern about the types and the volumes of complaints received by the office to date. And once again, I urge members of council to work together in the best interest of your municipality, respecting the role and the professional subject matter expertise of staff. While I will endeavor to reduce the time put into many complaints outstanding and where possible mediate or if appropriate dismiss, I conduct thorough investigations and typically this will incur time at a significant cost to the municipality. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Does council have any questions for Ms. Craig? I know in the report we have 3 recommendations. So before that, can I get a mover and a seconder for Ms. Craig? Councillor Watson, Councillor Connors, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Connors, that the Integrity Commissioner work with staff to update the Municipal Code of Conduct to include consistent and prescribed procedural steps for filing formal complaints for council consideration, that the Municipal Council Staff Relations Policy be updated for council consideration, and that a social media policy be developed, including best practices for council consideration.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Ms. Craig? Councillor Griffin, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sloan. I note that you did report to us that at times when people bring something to you which is not correct to the integrity process, that part of what an integrity commissioner does is redirects that appropriately. Another thing that I noticed reading this is that one of the reports that we have tonight, it sounds as if one of our councillors has addressed to you that there is a voting block occurring on council. And you made a comment in your report that it is not the role of the Integrity Commissioner to examine whether there are voting blocks on council and how they are operating and behaving. I know that is also not the role of the Ombudsman. Where would you ordinarily direct that sort of concern?
Through the
Ms.
chair,
Craig, please.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Griffin. It's a complex question, Councillor. I have to state that if a group of members of council, for example, are acting in a way that is intimidating or otherwise harassing to one or more members of council, then it's not so much the voting block that I would be looking at, but the pattern of conduct of a group of councillors. And that is within my mandate to review and to determine. Outside of that, if the Ombudsman will not take carriage of these types of issues, right now I don't have an answer for where those types of issues would be best addressed.
Supplementary, Councillor Griffin, please.
No, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Under requiring action, please note the report 041725 has been withdrawn from this evening's agenda as requested by the Integrity Commissioner. I invite the Integrity Commissioner to provide an overview of the complaint investigation report included on this evening's agenda, report number CEO 514252. Ms. Craig, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I submit to council the report of the formal complaint 0514-25-2 under the Code of Conduct and Code of Conduct for members of council and members of local boards of the municipality of Central Elgin. I'll refer to this as the code going forward. The complaint named as the respondents, Councillor Graham in the report referred to as Respondent 1, and Councillor Griffin in the report referred to as Respondent 2 in connection with alleged conduct prohibited by the code. On May 14th, 2025, a formal complaint was filed under the code regarding the conduct of Respondents 1 and 2 during a closed session of council of April 14th. The complaint alleges that both councillors' conduct ran afoul of the code, making accusatory statements with reference to the municipality's CAO. I found that the respondents did not breach sections 8.3, 8.6, 8.7, and 11.3, and did breach section 8.1 of the code. With respect to the process I followed, the code sets out in your appendix 3 to the code the complaint protocol, which is a high-level formal code process, and it has 3 steps, which I have pointed out to you need further detail, and you've accepted that. I identified that there was a need for a more robust process set out, so I developed a process that looked at the best practices of complaint procedures in Ontario to ensure that it was fair. I advised the respondents of this, and I advised the complainant, and I set out my process in the report before you. In their reply to the complaint allegations, both of the respondents acknowledged being very direct during the discussion, but rejected the allegation that their behavior amounted to misconduct under the code. Both respondents stated that the complaint was part of a systemic attempt to dismiss and undermine the female members of council. I set out excerpts of both respondents' replies to the allegations in the body of the report, as well as redacted copies of their comments on errors or omissions of fact of the draft report that I provided to them. The investigation and reporting of the complaint was very complicated by the fact that allegations related to the conduct of the respondents at a closed meeting. The fact of a discussion about a legal matter is known publicly because of the recording in the public minutes. Similarly, the attendance of legal counsel in closed session is also noted in the minutes. In the report, I was mindful that the closed meeting deliberations are not public, and this report would be public, and I sought to explain what occurred and what was allegedly contrary to the code without providing any information on the deliberations of the closed meeting. I've anonymized the information received from witnesses given the small number of individuals who were present at the meeting. It's standard practice that municipal integrity commissioners will not decline to investigate conduct of a member simply because it occurred at a closed meeting. While members are prohibited from discussing the substance of what was discussed at a closed meeting, an integrity commissioner has jurisdiction over the review and investigation of conduct of members that is alleged to have contravened the code, and it would be absurd, in my view, and effectively impair the purpose of the code to restrict the limit and jurisdiction of ethics officers simply because the conduct took place in closed session. With respect to the respondents' claims that the investigation was marred by procedural unfairness, I received comments on the draft report that set out that there was no opportunity, and I quote, to know who the witnesses were, hear their statements, respond to them directly, and this, and I quote, violates basic principles of fairness. Further, the comments went on to say that the fact that the interviews were conducted with witnesses, yet only written submissions were received by Councillor Graham and Councillor Griffin, created an imbalance in the assessment of credibility. They said in the quote, it was unfair to make findings based on untested, one-sided evidence. During the course of this investigation, I've maintained the confidentiality of complainants, disclosing particulars other than the identity of the complainants, which in my view is not necessary for the respondents to understand and consider the substance of the allegations to be able to respond. The code does not require the integrity commissioner to advise the respondent of the complainant's identity. Procedural fairness requires that a respondent receive the details of the allegations and an opportunity to respond to the allegations. Any of the individuals who witnessed the conduct could have complained, and not knowing the actual identity of the individual who signed the form, in my view, is irrelevant to the respondent's ability to respond to the facts alleged. To support this position, I noted, as articulated by the Supreme Court in Baker versus Canada, at paragraph 23, the court sets out the nature of the decision and the process followed in making this, the decision by an administrative decision maker, like an integrity commissioner, although it was not an integrity commissioner in that particular instance, and the factors to be considered when determining what is required to meet the duty of procedural fairness. At paragraph 27, the Baker decision says considerable weight must be given to the choice of procedures and the institutional constraints. In the Baker decision, the court determined that the lack of an oral hearing did not constitute a violation of the requirements of procedural fairness. The opportunity was accorded to the applicant, in this case the respondent, to produce full and complete written documentation in relation to all aspects satisfied, and this satisfied the requirement of participatory rights of that applicant. And so the integrity commissioner is not bound to interview the respondents, but rather to receive their submissions on the allegations and to be able to review those thoughtfully and carefully. I also provided reasons regarding the other concerns on errors and omissions raised by the respondents in the report. I considered their comments for the draft report, which is before you. In the report, I set out that the members questioned the deviations of a member of staff and sought clarification on the reasons, particularly when it involves financial decisions, and that is allowed under the code. However, based on the information that I received and the materials that I reviewed during the course of the investigation, the respondent's conduct on a balance of probabilities was received by staff and the others in attendance as disrespectful, demeaning, intimidating. I found that a reasonable person would have perceived the conduct in the same way. It's how the respondents in this complaint expressed their personal opinions that crossed the line of undermining and disrespecting staff. I found the respondents questioned staff about their role in an aggressive and disrespectful manner and without treating the staff person with dignity. I also find that the respondents were aware of the impact of this conduct. The evidence is clear that there was tension in the room after the respondents' comments, such that any reasonable person would have been able to conclude the discomfort was a result of the accusatory discussion, tone, and delivery that happened. To be clear, I have found that it was not asking the questions, seeking clarification that ran afoul of the code, but rather the disrespectful tone and manner in which the comments were delivered and what they suggested, accusing of an unprofessional act of deliberately disobeying a direction of counsel with little regard for the context or the circumstances. It was disciplining, not seeking clarification. It is clear that the respondent's conduct undermined the professional integrity of the CAO. In my appointed statutory role, I recommend in the report before you, in A, that the council decide to impose with respect to respondent 1 and 2, under A and B, a penalty of a reprimand and remedial action that respondent 1 and 2 tender a written apology to the municipality's CAO with respect to disrespectful conduct at the April 14th, 2025 closed meeting within 10 days of this report being tabled, if adopted, and the apology will be submitted to me as Integrity Commissioner for a determination of sufficiency. If council adopts A2 and B2, failure by the respondents to comply with the council decision will be considered as a breach of the code. In my education role, I recommend and I stress that council should continue to foster a culture of constructive dialogue in both open and closed sessions, particularly where difficult governance and accountability matters are discussed. I have also recommended to this end training in gender equity and inclusive governance. It is recommended that all members of council receive education on the determination of the municipality on the impact of gendered language and member respective staff engagement. If any of these recommendations are approved by council this evening, I remain seized of the complaint until the penalties and remedial action are implemented. With respect to my process, I'll very briefly go over. Section 223.5 of the Municipal Act provides that the Integrity Commissioner shall preserve secrecy. That is the language of the Municipal Act with respect to all matters that come to his or her knowledge in the course of his or her duties. The confidentiality requirement, however, is balanced with the fact that the provincial legislature developed this statutory scheme for integrity commissioners, providing significant autonomy. Specifically, Section 223.6 sub 2 of the Municipal Act states, if the integrity commissioner reports to the municipality that in her opinion, a member of council has contravened the code of conduct, the commissioner may disclose in the report such matters as in the commissioner's opinion are necessary for the purposes of the report. In other words, sufficient information for council for you to make an informed decision because it is council and not the integrity commissioner that makes the decision on sanctions. The integrity commissioner is the investigator and the fact finder, and council has the findings based on that investigation before you in the report. You, council, have the recommendations on sanctions, and council, not the integrity commissioner, decides if you will apply those sanctions. I advised the respondents that they were being provided a copy of the draft in advance of this final report in accordance with the principles of procedural fairness. Despite one respondent's suggestion that I view council meetings as evidence of their comportment aligned with the code rules and other circumstances, and that I review previous reports by the other integrity commissioner, I determined what I should review and what I believe to be necessary with respect to the complaint and the alleged conduct before me. Of course, closed meetings are not recorded, and that makes it problematic, but I have spoken to individuals who were able to provide me with their recollection of what happened, and there was sufficient alignment with the recollections that on a balance of probabilities, I determined what had happened. It is not my responsibility to look at the interpretation of another integrity commissioner and how they handled the complaint before them, even though some of the facts of the code and the situations may be common. I make my own findings of fact and my own interpretations. I've taken into consideration the submissions of all the parties, and all the facts are based on a standard of balance of probabilities. The balance of probability standard requires me to scrutinize the relevant evidence with care to determine whether it is more likely than not that an alleged event occurred. And it has to be clear, it has to be convincing, and it has to be cogent. Council has my findings before you, and council may accept entirely. You may reject outright, or you may vary the recommended sanctions. And I would also submit that it is important to understand that if you do reject my recommendations or vary my recommendations, there have been judicial reviews that require that you give your reasons for doing so. With respect to this report, my understanding based on other judicial reviews is that you may not ask questions of the members who have been investigated. The investigation is closed. I have completed my investigation. I have made my findings. Whether or not you ask questions of the members who are going to make statements if they so choose, as it relates to the recommended sanctions, is a question to be answered by your procedural bylaw or your legal counsel. With respect to the right to make submissions on the recommended sanctions and whether they have a pecuniary interest under the MCIA, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, the Act states that if a respondent has a pecuniary interest in a code complaint regarding a decision to suspend the remuneration. So the Act is very clear. That is where they have a pecuniary interest. If the Integrity Commissioner is making a recommendation to suspend the remuneration paid to the member, in that situation, the member is required under the statute to declare a pecuniary interest and not vote. But the Act says in Section 521 that the member who is being investigated may take part in the discussion, make submissions to council, and may attempt to influence the voting. I have taken into consideration many factors in making these recommendations. For example, the foundational principles of the code, which highlight respect for members of council, of staff, of the public, the importance of maintaining public trust in council's processes and professionalism of members, the respondents' cooperation with the investigation. They have cooperated in this investigation. The municipality, its facilities, including open and closed meetings, is the workplace for the purposes of the respect in the workplace policies of your municipality and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. These recommended sanctions also reflect that this is the first finding of breach that I have made against these respondents since I have been your Integrity Commissioner. So I respectfully submit the report before you, the findings before you, and the recommended sanctions and remedial action for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. As they're doing them individually, Councillor Graham, you have the ability to address the report should you wish. Yeah, so they've broken it. Ms. Craig has asked to be broken down into two. So the report first is you now have the opportunity to address the report. And then afterwards we'll move, there'll be a mover and a seconder and a vote. And then we'll proceed with second. Thank you.
Through the chair. My comments during closed session regarding this matter were firm and direct. There's no denying that. I was focused on governance and accountability of staff, and it was not a personal attack. The final report recognized that I did not make any disparaging remarks, and that the characterization of yelling by the complainant was found to be unsubstantiated. I continue to raise concerns about gendered language, misogyny, and unequal standards, and I welcome the IC's recommendation for gender equity and the respectful engagement training for council. At this point, that's all I'm willing to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. I'm now asking if any of the rest of council has any questions for the Integrity Commissioner over this case, please. Seeing none, if I could get a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Connors.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Connors, that the following recommendation on sanctions and remedial action be imposed on Councillor Graham. A penalty of reprimand, and B, remedial action that Councillor Graham tender a written apology to the CIO with respect to disrespectful conduct at the April 14th, 2025 closed meeting within 10 days of this report, and that the apology be submitted to the Integrity Commissioner to determine sufficiency.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. The second respondent, Councillor Griffin, you now have an opportunity to speak to the findings. Councillor.
Thank you. When my children apologize to each other at home, I tell them that an apology has 3 parts. I'm sorry in our home means I understand how my actions have hurt you. I understand that you are hurt, and I promise that you will not face that harm from me again. I've thought a lot about that leading up to this meeting, what apology means in that context. I understand how the meeting in question was upsetting for our CAO. I am a single mother of 3 children. I know how frightening the possible loss of income can be when your children are relying on you for their stability, when they've been unsettled and relocated, and you would do anything to not put them through that again. And Ms. Hurd was let go by her last municipality before us. She moved her family here in order to work for us. So I can empathize perhaps better than most people in this chamber with the anxiety that she could have felt when members of her council expressed displeasure at her professional decision. I understand the role that I played in that hurt as well. I understand that receiving questions, not from 1, but from 2 members of council, could feel overwhelming. I understand that if those questions had come by a morning email, she could have crafted full responses to them, rather than grasping to articulate a position on the fly. So Ms. Hurd has my empathy for the predicament, and she also has my regret that the questioning became necessary. I cannot possibly promise not to over-question decisions in the future, unless this council equips us with the necessary tools for accountability. And here I seek the support of Ms. Hurd and also this council. I have brought motion after motion to this council, urging better accountability. In February of 2023, I moved that we should record closed sessions, a policy which is recommended by the Ombudsman, so that if a complaint about a closed session were to arise, we would have footage. My motion was defeated. I brought another motion in March of 2023, asking that we receive written overview of our closed session matter, rather than receiving verbal-only reports. If that had been available for this meeting in question, Councillor Graham and I both might have had time to send questions in emails or to ask them in one-on-one phone calls in advance. These options would probably have felt far less hostile than the deluge of questions that follows the sudden awareness of possible legislative conflicts, the formation of precedents, and a sense of urgency to absorb a great deal of information too quickly and without preparation. Either of these proactive motions could have negated the event at all, or at least negated the difficulty of investigating it. And even now, these policies are not being recommended to us as a lesson learned the hard way. I swore an oath to the 13,000 people who live in Central Elgin. I promised to work faithfully and diligently. I cannot uphold that oath without asking questions about the way that public money is spent, about the rules that our staff and our council follow. And that commitment to the public must be the cornerstone of the work we do here. I wish that I could promise not to repeat the scenario, but without the support of this council, I do not know that I can keep that promise. If we cannot be prepared before our meetings for their content, I cannot promise that I will not have a flood of unplanned questions. If we cannot record our actions, I cannot even prove my conduct. I cannot break my oath, and my oath requires me to question when I believe wrong may have occurred. Therefore, I urge my colleagues to vote not only to accept suggested training, but also to reconsider the 2 motions that I brought previously for accountability. This council can ensure staff respect and procedural accountability. Neither should come at the expense of the other. I am committed to respectful discourse, but I also need the means to do my job responsibly and with diligence. I will write a letter expressing my empathy, my regret, and my good faith intentions not to push farther than my oath compels me. I know that if I were hearing out my child's apology to her sister at home, that third one would fall short of a promise. I talked with my middle child about this meeting. I told her that I have 5/6 of an apology and the earnest desire to be able to offer one completely, but that I am missing the certainty that Ms. Heard is safe for more of the same. She asked me to round up. She's old enough to understand what 3 unpaid months means. She is old enough to understand the pains that I've described of knitting one's life back together. She says that 5/6 of I'm sorry is close enough to just say it. And for her sake, I would like to. I do not want to jeopardize our household in the months leading up to Christmas. But someday she will be old enough to sit at this table, should she choose to. And I do not want her to have learned from her mother that hopeful promises are enough. So I am going to write the most whole and sincere letter that I can offer. And I ask that Ms. Heard and Ms. Craig will receive it in the spirit that it is intended. And I ask this council to make the changes that would make my good intentions a reality.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Griffin. Members of council, are there any questions for the Integrity Commissioner? Seeing none, could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the following recommendation on sanctions and remedial action be imposed on Councillor Griffin. A penalty of a reprimand, and B, remedial action that Councillor Griffin tender a written apology to the CIO with respect to disrespectful conduct at the April 14th, 2025 closed meeting within 10 days of this report, and that the apology be submitted to the Integrity Commissioner to determine sufficiency.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Finally, within the report, as has been mentioned, there is a third recommendation for council to consider. I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation regarding council training. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Griffin, thank you. Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Councillor Watson, that all members of council participate in training in gender equality and inclusive governance.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Ms. Craig, I thank you for your time. SC 1525 is a special events application, Santa Claus Parade in Belmont. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Connors, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Connors, that the special events permit for the Belmont Santa Claus Parade to be held December 7th, 2025 from approximately 6 to 7 p.m. be approved subject to the conditions as outlined.
Any questions on the Santa Claus Parade? No? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And now we have Heritage Central Elgin minutes. Mover and a seconder for the Heritage Committee. Councillor Watson, Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that the minutes for the Heritage Committee meeting dated September 24th, 2025 be received for information.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Director of Corporate Services, our treasurer, Mr. Jansen, memorandum 2026 budget process and timeline. There's no action required at this time, but I just wondered if council had any questions regarding the information that's been provided, please. Okay, that's good. Director of Planning and Engineering Services, DPE 0525, Pleasant Valley Bridge update. Now, this has been deferred from September 8th. We received some information this evening. Would council consider a deferral to look at the information that was provided by Ms. Dale? Could I ask for comments, please? Councillor Griffin, please.
Thank you, through you. I was pleased when this delegation came to us because it seemed to bring together some of what the engineer had told us last time about how maybe bridges can be more expensive to repair than they are to build in the first place, and some of the homework that they've been doing for us. I do appreciate the legwork they've done, and if it's possible for us to follow that up. My favorite person that has called me so far about this bridge had taken our traffic report, the number of crossings of the bridge per day, and the prices of each of these bridges and the numbers of years they would last, and had calculated out a cost per crossing of the bridge to decide what our best value was. I thought that was a really interesting approach, and I cannot help thinking that if what they are saying is true, then we would get far, far, far better price per crossing on the 75-year rebuild.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I've asked for a deferral motion. Deputy Mayor.
I'll move that deferral motion.
Seconder, Councillor Watson.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that staff be directed to review the information provided by Amy Dale, partner, Harrison Pensa LLP, on behalf of Aaron Everatt, North Shore Farming Company Limited, regarding the Pleasant Valley Bridge, and report back to council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Then that's carried. Thank you. Bylaw 2025, municipal drain, Pearl Drain, third reading. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that bylaw 2025-41 be read a third time and passed.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We're going to proceed into closed session. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Griffin, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble. The council proceed into closed session at 7:51 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to a proposed acquisition of land by the municipality.
All those in favor? Opposed? We're closed.